Thank you all for joining in person. Why don't we start with the pledge? Anyone who would like to stand and join the pledge, please go. I pledge of allegiance. Thank you. You have a copy of the agenda in front of you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as printed? Thank you. Any suggested modifications? Hearing none, we'll just do a voice vote. All in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Next, let's move on to the minutes from, I think, our shortest meeting ever, starting at 10:31 and adjourning at 10:55. I think we're shooting. Okay. Any additions, corrections, modifications? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Let's move on to the next item on the agenda, hearing for 2023 revised airline companies.
All right, thank you, Lieutenant Governor. We do have a modification from the value, the assessed value from last year, and it is now, the new number is $9,121,300. And in the 2023 reporting period, Grand Forks and Williston airports did not report properly, which caused an undervaluation problem, resulting in a shortfall of taxes billed and collected. This error was corrected with a total of $37,657.83 that will be billed, collected, and sent out to cities and airport authorities with the board's approval. So again, it was the result of an error by those two entities, those two cities.
Could you say more about the errors?
I'm going to ask Shelley, can you or one of your staff members provide a little more detail on that, please?
Madam Chair, members of the board, I'm going to defer to Vicki Williams to answer that question.
Lieutenant Governor, members of the board, the airline reports come in from both airline companies and airports. On the airport returns, they are supposed to specify how much is attributable to real property and how much is attributable to personal property. Those two airports did not report that, and that was missed on the reporting. And when it came to payment time, and the treasurer's office did ask a question about those two airports, and then that's how the error was discovered. So going forward, we are in the process of putting that from a spreadsheet and paper returns. We are programming that right now with our IT team and our FAST team, and we will be putting that into GenTax this year. And that will be a hard stop for them where they have to report that so that we don't have this issue going forward.
Thank you. And did the treasurer's office notice the error just because there was such a dramatic difference in amount from the previous year? Nice job. Thank you. Is there a second? Any discussion? Hearing none. Can we do a voice vote or would you like a roll call vote? Well, let's do a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Hearing for centrally assessed companies on the 2024 tentative assessments. Commissioner Crocious.
Okay, thank you, Lieutenant Governor.
Oh, I put that mic in, that was.
All right, moving into the 2024 centrally assessed numbers. We'll start with the ad valorem tax types, and these tax types are assessed according to value under North Dakota Century Code 5705 and 5706. And again, we will start with airlines. And then as we go through the categories, stand for any questions that any of you may have. The value for the assessed value for airlines in 2024 is $9,410,100. Just a couple of quick bullet points. Lease payments declined for Allegiant Air, Envoy Air, and Frontier Airlines. Frontier Airlines only flew into Fargo in 2023. Federal Express Corp, SkyWest Airlines, and United Airlines had an increase in lease payments for 2023. And also as a part, as we go through these, you've got the 8.5 by 14 spreadsheets that you can see the variation. The top sheet, the pie chart sheet, was the overview of all of the assessments. And then as we get into airlines, you can see the variance between the 2023, and then the one we're actually looking at this time around, the 2024 numbers. But 2024, when you look at the revised number of $9.121 million, $300 did increase to 9.410 And I'm trying to recall, do we go through all of them and then have an overall approval at the end? Charles, do you recall, or does anyone recall? Or do we vote on these individually and then in aggregate at the end?
Yes, I believe individual voting is the best way to go. That way it's clear which ones are being approved, if there are any that need to be adjusted later or anything. Okay.
Any discussion? Where does Envoy operate?
Lieutenant Governor, members of the board, Envoy is a regional carrier for American Airlines.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Okay, next we'll move to natural gas pipelines. The value for natural gas pipelines in 2024, in terms of what we are looking to approve, is $3,335,713,000. And some bullet points on that. On average, natural gas companies saw an increase in revenue during 2023. That increase in revenue, when you look at the spreadsheet, can be seen in Dakota Midstream LLC, One Oak Rockies Midstream, and WBI Energy Transmission. They had the more significant increase in assessments. And then on the other side of the equation, Pecan Pipeline saw a 55% decrease in net operating income in 2023. The property tax team completed an interim study, a research study of in-utility factors this past year. They did some really good work in that realm. 5 companies saw changes due to this study, and these changes more significantly affected USG Midstream Bakken and Endeavor Field Services. Both Hess, North Dakota Export Logistics, and XTO Energy Incorporated saw an increase in the miles of pipeline, increasing their assessed value by approximately 25%. In 2023, Bison Pipeline experienced another drop in operating income. They are planning to complete work on 2 meter stations and 3 compressor stations in 2025, and are expecting to see positive income again for the 2026 assessment. And then finally, one natural gas company did sell during 2023. Paradigm Energy Partners LLC sold to Harvest, North Dakota. And those are just some of the bullet points, and again, stand for any questions.
If the Chairman and Commissioner Crotches, so Paradigm sold to Harvest, what was then be the reason for the $4 million reduction in valuation if it was just a shift from one to the other, or what did the value itself go down as well?
In part, was that depreciation, as well as, was there another factor? Defer to the team on that.
Lieutenant Governor, members of the board, that is attributable to the depreciation that companies assessed in that manner see annually.
So move.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, next we'll move to oil and refined petroleum. And the recommendation for approval of the tentative oil and refined petroleum assessments totals $2,028,878,000. This year, we saw a more significant drop in income in some companies due to the loss of contracts and lack of use of those pipelines. The three companies that were impacted the most were Bakken Pipeline Company, Belle Fourche Pipeline, and Tidal Energy Marketing USA LLC. Like natural gas, several companies saw an uptick in operating revenue to include Enbridge, Energy LP, One Oak Bakken Pipeline, Plains Pipeline, and Plains Pipeline Montana. On the other side, Dakota Midstream LLC saw a decrease in their net operating income, resulting in a decreased assessment. Tesoro Great Plains Gathering and Marketing was impacted by the updated in-utility calculation, increasing their overall assessment by 13%. Both Glacier Peak Midstream and Independent Trading and Transportation companies saw significant increases in their assets, resulting in increases of 11 and 14% respectively. So that is the reason for those, for the jump on both of those. And then in 2023, Hawthorne Oil Transportation sold to a new company, Wild Rose Pipeline Company. Wild Rose Pipeline Company's assessment is significantly higher due to no depreciation at this point and no income to calculate an income approach to value.
So moved.
There a second? Thank you. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, next, carbon dioxide pipeline. Recommendation put together by Shelley and her team for approval would total $7,743,000. This year, the team did separate out the CO2 pipelines, and there will be one more company being added to the tax roll next year. And due to the 10-year exemption for CO2 pipelines, the most efficient way to track the exemption was to have this pipeline type in its own category. Dakota Gasification saw another year of significant depreciation due to the contract entered with the Office of State Tax Commissioner in 1999. This year, the 24-year-old company has depreciated to 92% or 92% depreciation. And Denbury Green, that's down in the very southwestern part of the state, saw its first year of normal depreciation at 5%. And again, the total that seeking approval for is $7.743 million.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, next, railroad. Railroad, the total was $791,194,000. This year, a new type of obsolescence was included, a size adjustment for those railroad companies that are smaller and therefore typically less financially sound. This resulted in decreased assessments for Dakota, Missouri Valley and Western Railroad, Dakota Northern Railroad, Northern Plains Railroad, and Red River Valley and Western Railroad. Dakota Northern Railroad saw a significant decrease, I should say, in income this year, bringing down their 5-year average income by half. And for the second year in a row, Northern Plains is not filed as statutorily required. Therefore, a majority of the information was obtained through Sioux Line Railroad reports. Additional information regarding Northern Plains was estimated given their historical data and projected changes over the past 2 years.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
All right. The next is electric, gas, and heat utilities. The total for that category is $598,274,428. Electric, gas, and heat assessments are trending upward. Most companies experienced an increase in their net operating income this past year. Otter Tail Power Company double reported Maricourt Wind Center in electric, gas, and heat, as well as in generation from wind taxed under 5733.2. They have removed the value from the utility plant this year. And since they have not reported it properly since 2020, we will have revised assessments for the board at the upcoming August meeting, as they have not provided all of the documentation as of yet. And this will take care of the double reporting issue and will ensure that it will not happen again in the future.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
All right, next is ad valorem wind. And the total for this category is $299,529,500. As a whole, the ad valorem wind, which is assessed under North Dakota Century Code 57-06, has decreased approximately 24%, mainly due to reduced generation from lower wind resources in 2023, an additional 5% depreciation, a significant increase in obsolescence, and an increased capitalization rate. FPL Energy, Florida Power and Light, North Dakota Wind decreased 60% over 2022 as it has reached 100% depreciation, and a significant decrease in generation as older wind farms struggle to find buyers for their generated electricity. This farm is scheduled to flip and shift into the electric tax under North Dakota Century Code 5733.2 in 2024 for the 2025 assessment year. And then I believe we'll continue to see more of these, begin that conversion. Is it a 20-year window on that? Okay. So this is the first, right?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Crushas, we had not Maricourt, what's the, Minn Kota, excuse me, has 2 wind turbines. One is Petersburg and one is Valley City.
That's
And
right.
over the last 2 years, each one of them has gone from ad valorem into the pilot tax.
I always forget about those. That's the one right off of, just to the east of Valley City, I think, up on top of the hill. Yeah. Yep. I forget about those.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, next is electric distribution, generation, and transmission payment in lieu of tax. There are 4 electric types that are valued as in North Dakota Century Code 5733.2, and they're referred to as the payments in lieu of tax or pilot. The amount in this category is $15,155,675, and very precise, 11 cents. Right. Slope Electric Cooperative saw a 22% decrease. That was due to 2 oil-related companies, which account for 70% of their usage. So there was a decrease from them. They saw decreases in their industry. That's what drove that. The oil field Slope Electric serves as a tertiary field, which is not the same as other fields that are serviced by co-ops around the state. A tertiary field is, we'll leave that part out. The overall trend for electric distribution was overall growth of 11%. Lower Yellowstone Rural Electric Association Incorporated increased by 31%. The increase was the result of large commercial oil activity. McKinsey Electric Co-op increased 10% due to growth in oil and gas. There's quite a bit of new drilling up in that part of the world. KEM Electric Cooperative, their increase of 23% was due to a new pump site for a pipeline that started in April of 2023. And Montreal Williams Electric Cooperative, their 36% increase was due to a data center that was operational for the full year. They also saw an increase in oil company in that part of the world.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, next we've got electric transmission. That amount is $1,955,548.18. There are 4 companies that look as if they didn't report this year. You'll see that on your sheet. And they are, as you can see, Ashtabula Wind 3, Energy North Dakota, or North Dakota Wind LLC, FPL Energy, Oliver Wind, and then that's Oliver Wind 1 and also FPL Energy Oliver Wind 2. And there's some confusion regarding where to report transmission lines, whether in ad valorem wind or in electric transmission wind. It was determined that all transmission lines that are within the wind facility's boundary should be valued as ad valorem and included in the wind facility reporting number, and then all transmission lines that extend beyond that designated boundary should be reported in electric tax. There were a few outliers to note. Ashtabula Wind decreased 55% due to some of the electric transmission, so part of that. And then some of their Gentile lines falling within wind farm boundaries. Otter Tail Power had an increase of 34.2 miles of line added to this return in 2023, which was the result of reporting in the ad valorem category. That's now being reported, as noted earlier, in electric transmission. Rough Rider Electric Co-op had an increase of 30.32 miles. That was 115 kV line added to the return in 2023. And Northern Divide and Emmons Wind increased because they graduated from their exemption status for the new lines that were put in place in 2020. They will now be taxed at the full amount of $300 per mile.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, next we have electric generation from wind. That amount is $12,716,901.69. Wind assessed under 5733.2 shows a slight decrease since last year. Most of that is attributed to decreased generation due to lower wind resource availability in 2023, mechanical maintenance issues, and weather events. So it's interesting, but it was apparently just a little bit less windy in North Dakota, which I didn't know was a possibility. That makes this a little suspicious that it was actually less windy, but it was, right?
So move.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Well, whenever it's less windy in North Dakota, I will vote approval on that, so. Okay, next we have electric generation. The amount for electric generation is $2,537,900, $537,950.53. Basin Electric Power Company showed an increase due to increased demand in the Bakken area. And then let's make sure I'm on. The OREG 1 and 2 experienced issues with multiple equipment failures throughout the year, as well as being short-staffed. So that was a part of their numbers dropping. And I think those were the major bullet points on this category.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And that concludes the centrally assessed companies and also the pilot as well.
We, question, when we voted on the airline one, I think we only made one vote on the airline one. We have two different agenda items, one for the 2023 adjustment and one for the 2024 tentative assessment. Did we need two separate votes, or was that all encompassed in the one vote as it was recorded?
We did.
We did too.
We
We did
did.
do- okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, when we did airlines.
Oh, okay, I don't remember
Yep.
one. All right. I was looking at Shelley and she was nodding.
Right, we'll move on to agenda item number 5. Oh, we did 5.
Yep, we,
did
yep,
five.
we
I'm
covered
sorry.
5, so it was,
6, approval of state medical center resolution.
okay. And this is something that as the members of the board are aware, we do this every year. It is a requirement in Century Code. So here it goes. Whereas Article 10, Section 10 of the North Dakota Constitution requires that a 1 mil levy on all taxable property within the state shall be spread for the purpose of establishing a medical center at the University of North Dakota. Therefore, albeit resolved that a medical center levy for the year of 2024 is hereby levied at a rate of 1 mil on each dollar of net taxable valuation of all property subject to the general property tax for the year 2024.
Had a motion?
That is a motion
Second.
I've made.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you. Why do we have to do that every year?
That is a great question for
constantly
legal
must be happening.
counsel. But I've read that part of code, but it's been probably 2 years because I had that original question, but it's in Century Code that we need to do that every year, correct?
We
Charles?
rubber stamp a lot of stuff.
That's correct. Yeah, you're making the actual levy. It's a mechanical thing.
Great. Thank you. Griggs County update.
All right. Well, thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Added this to the agenda, just the overall overarching report on the sales ratio studies. We have them from 52 out of the 53 counties. We do not have one at this point in time for Griggs County. And the due date was June 1st, June 30th. So the due date has passed. To be honest, I've listened to some of their meetings. I don't know what the intent is in terms of whether or not they will ultimately send one to us. And one thing I wanted to talk about a little bit, and there's, we hear this all the time, or at least I do, in terms of some of the statements that are made in terms of what our role is and what happens when valuations increase and whatnot. What we're looking at, it's called the State Board of Equalization, and I believe we've got Griggs County, at least some of the representatives listening into the meeting today. It's important, and I wanted to just give an update that right now we don't have anything in hand that we would need in order to complete our duties as the State Board of Equalization for Griggs. We have the other 52 counties. I think we've got a little bit of work on one of the reports in particular, but 52 out of 53 have reported. I think oftentimes there's, and I hear this, and it's not one county specific to one county, but in terms of valuation, property valuations and assessments, the only concern the state has, to be honest, and you've got the 1 mil for the state medical center, and for, is it 28 counties, there's the Garrison diversion, and that's also 1 mil. Aside from that, if there's I believe it's the soil conservation district, that's a choice counties make if they want to enter into that program, which creates cost share opportunities in particular. But there are 2 mills, which in general terms, 99% of the revenues collected by a county stay with the county. The state isn't looking to increase the amount collected because those funds are used locally. They're retained locally, they're used locally. Our role is to make sure that it's whatever the budget a county decides is distributed fairly and equally, hence the word equalization. But it's, I've listened to some of the transcripts from Griggs, some of their meetings and how things are framed up, that the state is motivated to have them collect more year after year. If their budget remained the same and they're equalized, the mill rate, which is the end result of what is their budget, what's the total value of property, would decrease. That's an option they have. And I respect that. I respect local control, but I think it's important that we are not a driving force. And I don't think, I can't ever recall the state stepping in saying to any county, you need to collect more from your constituents, from the people living. It's up to them. They determine what their budget need is. And if it goes up, that's their choice. If it goes down, that's their choice. Our role is equalization, making sure that that tax obligation is distributed evenly. So at this point in time, I don't know that there's a lot that, for us, it's a waiting game to see if they submit a report. If they don't submit a report, then we'll move on the other 52 counties, but we won't have anything to approve for Griggs, and I wanted the board to be aware of that. And I don't believe they have a tax director at this stage of the game, and haven't for quite some time. Last year, I believe they contracted with another was it a tax director or?
Commissioner, it was a private company who is a North Dakota Class 1 assessor. And it was made up of two Class 1 assessors to do their sales ratio study. And it did get done in time for the October meeting, but it took the whole month to get it done. The sales ratio study is a study that's done in 3 parts. The first part's due at the end of March. Second and third parts are due at the end of June. So it's labor intensive, and it's something that I believe most counties work on all year long. So it's hard to get it done in a short time and do it properly. So
What has the communication been regarding the delay?
Madam Chair, members of the board, we've been in communication with them on a fairly regular basis. And I've listened to all of their meetings. I know that they have had a few contracts submitted that have been rejected. There was one tax director who decided to do their sales ratio study and then backed out. So I'm not sure what the behind the scenes are, but just what I've heard through their meetings.
So, Madam Chair, just a general overall statement I'd make. Because we do deal with it quite a bit. You can't hear me? Oh, now you can hear me? Over the years, and I know it can be rather challenging for political subs, but with the 3 components in taxing I mean, you have the valuation, you have the mill levy, but that's all a function of the budget. And a lot of times you have far too many political subs that are not doing zero-based budgeting. And that becomes a real issue because if the director walks in, superintendent for the school board walks in and says, hey, we need to do a 3% overall, how do you know you need a 3%? And if you just continue to operate that way, you're going to continue to have the budget go up. You have less accountability about where's it being spent, even though it'll show categories. But then all of a sudden, if valuation stays the same, the amount of levy goes up. Or if valuations go up, then the levy may stay the same. But it just becomes a weird animal that I know a lot of people struggle with. And you get a lot of calls, a lot of questions, a lot of upset people. But it's too bad we couldn't start with 101 just on the budgeting part for everyone and then start working from there. And the thing is, there's some knowledgeable people within a lot of our political subs, but there's a lot that are just along for the ride and they're just trying to drink from a fire hose, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, I would add, as the commissioner's talking about budgets, we are doing our third annual audit summit. So if there's any political subs out there that would like to learn more about budgeting, it's something that from the audit standpoint, we do a lot more testing now. We're checking all of these things. We're trying to help them better understand the statutory requirements built into the budgeting process. If you look back through some of our audits, there's a lot of locals, municipalities that are not doing it correctly. So if anybody out there is interested, please sign up for our audit summit. We're gonna have a great session on that. We have spreadsheet templates for counties, cities, and schools out there that they can use that walk them through the process. All they have to do is ask. And if you're looking for a resource, call the auditor's office. We'd be happy to help explain a lot of this to them.
Can you say just a little bit more about the agenda for the summit?
So we're going to go through, some of these key changes in legislation. We're going to talk about single audit, as single audits of federal spending that we've seen in the state, and it has gone up drastically over the last 4 years, and we think it's going to continue. Again, budgets. We're going to talk through some of the ACFR. It's going to be a great session. We'll also do at the end a Q&A. So if people out there have questions, they can submit those. And we're going to have a whole panel of our speakers there to answer those questions live. It's going to be, again, a great event. The third time we've been doing this. It's a great resource for people who want to learn more, to know more. And all of this, again, we're going to walk through some of these, budgets and some of the testing and some of the key issues that we see regularly. And for us, it's a known issue.
Sounds like a great summit. What is the date or dates and location?
July 24th, and it's all virtual. So you can log in right from your, computer in your office, wherever you're at, and it's free.
How are you marketing that?
We have sent out all kinds of flyers, emails. We're working through Association of Counties, League of Cities, School Board Association. So we're getting out emails to them and having them communicate with their members. But we've been doing that with as many of these associations as possible. We're working, I think last number I heard is we're almost 200 people registered.
Excellent. And who is your primary target audience?
Local governments.
Any particular position?
Any of the city auditors, county auditors, anybody who's working with financials. We'd love to have even the, commissioners listen in. It's great for them to learn more about how their financials and some of the obligations that they have flow through their entities. But we also encourage just any citizen who wants to learn, because we get more and more citizen engagement than we've really ever had before in the auditor's office. People want to know. We do have a significant transparency issue across the state of North Dakota. We've got some local governments and some of these smaller entities that have not reported financial numbers in nearly a decade. So the most recent information that a taxpayer could learn, it may be from 2017, 2018. That's the most recent information that we have on file. So we're working with citizens, we're working with some of these financial officers at the local levels, we're working with the county commissioners, the city commissioners, school board members, again, so that everybody has a better understanding of what their obligations are, and then how that information should be flowing through their entities. So it's all encompassing. All are welcome.
Last question, are the sessions recorded?
They are, and they will be available on our YouTube channel sometime down the road.
Thank you.
I would think also with the biggest burden being education, that our school board members and their clerks would be great to have them there. Because that would be substantial if they can start from that point and actually understand what's going on. I served for many years, and we actually got to the point where our percentage of the tax was going down, even though we were still providing ample education, and even address some of the salary increases that we were challenged with. So be good.
It's a great opportunity for these folks to learn more. And that's why in the last few years, I've mandated budget testing at the county level. We're now pushing it to the city level and school district. And you look at, those are our big three for local governments across the state with the amount of revenue and taxes that they are collecting. We want to make sure that those budget requirements are being met, which hopefully will help this team in collecting better information if we're doing that budgeting process better to begin with. So we're trying to get on the front end and help these folks out because when the audit shows up, that's kind of your test. And it's hard to pass a test if you don't have the answers. So we're trying to build those resources. And that's really because the legislature has given us our education and outreach coordinator. We've been able to expand a lot of these capabilities in the last year.
Sounds like good resources. Thank you for that information. I know there are some folks from Griggs County online. Would anyone like to speak from Griggs County? Get them on the monitors.
John Wakefield, I'm the chairman of the Griggs County Commission.
Yes,
Can you hear me?
we can.
Okay. Thank you all, Lieutenant Governor and the board. A little bit of explanation and a little bit of history of Griggs County and as far as how we operate from a property tax perspective. From the onset, I became a commissioner in 2013 along with 4 other people as a result of a recall of all 5 commissioners due to a school being built without a vote of the people. And from that point forward, we've been very conscious, I'm the last one left, of how the tax dollars in Griggs County are administered and treated. We're a very small county. We have central North Dakota, so we don't have the luxury of being close enough to the major metropolitan eastern cities to generate income that way as far as higher wages. We're not close enough to the oil side of it to have higher wages there, but now we are subject, of course, to the high inflation that is statewide. So I understand the importance of equalization. It's so that we can keep up with inflation, and we try to do that to a certain extent. But again, we had somebody hired this year. They backed out. It was for $10,000. The next bid was for $30,000 to do the sales ratio study, and it was the majority opinion of the board that was just too much money. A little background again, we practice as Griggs County dollar-based budgeting. We don't look at the number of mills that were allowed. We're far below the number of mills that would be allowed. For instance, in 2013, when the first budget was put forward, after the commission changed hands, that dollar number remained at that point or below for the next 9 years. So take factoring in inflation, we actually decreased our budget for 9 years going forward. If you look at the Griggs County rate of tax per citizen for our surrounding counties, we are far below those values also. We've been very conscious about making sure that a dollar spent benefits the people who we're taking it from. And we have a very aged population. 33% of Griggs County is over 65. So there you have a lot of people living on fixed income that just have been pushed to the point where you mentioned taxes and they repel, rightly so. Nevertheless, we understand that we need to try to comply with the state mandate for equalization, although we don't use and never have used the sales ratio study in Griggs County equalization. Because our county is so small and because the townships have so few residents, some townships don't have 10 people living in them, let alone 10 residents. So we do our equalization. We just finished it here last month. Each township turns in a report. They recommend either properties go up, this property goes down. We go through each one individually. The cities do the same thing. And we take the recommendations, and that then is the end of the equalization. The city of Cooperstown is the largest city in Griggs County. It encompasses over half of the population. Griggs County has a population of 2,200 people. Cooperstown is around 1,000 people. We never have enough sales, even close, to do a sales ratio study, even county-wide, let alone in the townships or the city. And being we don't have a tax director, we never have been able to have a tax director that achieved level 1 status. And that's not only in the last 10 years. Looking back from the implementation of the new rules requiring certification level 1, level 2, Griggs County has never employed a level 1 assessor. We've never got to the point where we could train somebody to stay around long enough to do that. As you can imagine, in these small communities, to be the tax director and then have to go to your neighbors and, right or wrong, increase the amount of money they have to pay in taxes, it's not a very popular position to hold in a small rural community like this. When we had this year, when we had the tax director hired to do the sales ratio study, and she backed out at the last minute, we reached out to a number of entities within the state. We are perfectly happy to supply the information needed. We don't have someone that is able to put it together and come up with a number, with the numbers that you need. We certainly have the number of sales. We have all the information needed, and we've reached out and tried to have someone step in and help us with this. After all, we're public servants, you're public servants, and we're supposed to serve the taxpayer. So is there a deliberate attempt not to do the sales ratio study? No. Is the sales ratio study unpopular with our residents for the most part? That would be yes. And it's because of the results of it have been abused. You as a board saw that firsthand last year during this meeting. You had the superintendents from both schools in Griggs County out openly urging you to raise valuations in Griggs County because they wanted more money. And that isn't something that was done in secret. That's very evident to the citizens of Griggs County. So anytime you mention raise in values, I agree with you. The concept of it, a raise in value does not necessarily mean a raise in your taxes. In reality, in Griggs County, it does, because not only is the school districts bumped up against their mill levy limit, but the city is also. So any raise in valuations is a raise in taxes. The citizens understand that. I serve the citizens of Griggs County. I serve District 1. I am obligated to try to convey their wishes. Their wishes are to not have them taxed to a point where they can't even survive anymore. I've been a county commissioner again for 11 years. I came about because of abuse of the tax system. I've never been political in my life. I don't plan on holding another political office after this takes place. I've fielded thousands of calls over these 13 years, and never once has a citizen called me and said, John, could you please raise my taxes? And so any attempt to do that, or any inclination to do that, whether it be the county, the school, the city, or the state, is going to meet with resistance from the citizens. And unfortunately, the county commission has to bear the brunt of that resistance. And I understand what the state's trying to do. I understand that they're mandated to do the sales ratio study, and they're mandated to equalize Griggs County along with all the rest of the counties. But Griggs County has done their job of equalization. We have equalized the townships and the cities. And we will certainly provide our information to you. And if we had a tax director, we would provide it in the form that you require. We don't. And the last bid we got was $30,000. That would be half of the budget we have for the tax director that we can't fill. All this time other than the last 3 years, the tax director's position was a part-time. We raised it to a full-time position, $60,000 plus benefits, plus 15% on retirement. And we're still unable to get anybody willing to step up. And we've even offered, as always, that we'll train them. So I don't know what the solution to this problem is. I will say that one size does not fit all. The tax equalization director, of course, is very important in these larger counties, larger population where you have vast amounts of sales, and you need to somehow make it equitable across the whole municipality or the whole county. Griggs County is really not that way. We're able to do it on an individual basis, just like it was always done prior to a tax director. And a home selling in Griggs County is not necessarily the value of a home out in the prairie where no one lives and doesn't have hardly any value at all, no services. So again, we're not openly being defiant. We're just pressed. We don't have the ability to force someone into the position. We don't have the powers of public servitude. And we're certainly not in this for any of our own motivations. I'll add one thing. We are public servants. You're public servants. We are truly public servants. There hasn't been a salary or a expense from a county commissioner to any Griggs County citizen for the last 12 years. All the county commissioners work for nothing, and they provide their own transportation and expenses. So there's no motivation in what we've done here other than frustration and not being able to hire someone to take the position. And of course, the citizens are not as most citizens aren't in favor of being taxed, and they're not in favor of being overly taxed. And Griggs County is in all of those positions. The citizens just turned down a new school bond issue. The citizens are subjected in Cooperstown to a doubling and coming up more than doubling of their special property taxes on their streets that was put on them without a vote of the people. It was mandated. They did it with a vote of the city council. And so Griggs County is tax weary. And I serve Griggs County. I serve the residents. My great grandfather came to Griggs County in 1893. There's been one of my family in Griggs County ever since then. I was born and raised, and I intend to die here. I have no other motivations other than to make life better for the citizens I serve, which is, of course, the whole purpose of government. And so I think we need some cooperation from the government up higher. The state certainly has somebody, if we supply the information, that can tabulate this and put it together and come up with a sales ratio study. That's all we're asking. And then when and if you see it necessary in the legislature to make some tiers in this tax director's position, obviously, one county is not the next county, and they have different needs. And I think that needs to be addressed. And if you want further verification that this property tax issue is coming to a boiling point, you have no farther to look than what's probably going to be on the ballot in November. And if we don't address this soon and make some changes that actually work for the people, people are going to stand up and work for themselves. And we know what kind of calamity that could cause if we have to all of a sudden change the whole way that revenue is produced. But if we can't produce revenue that is equitable to everybody and every entity, I'm afraid that's where this will eventually end up. And I appreciate that you people on the board are conscious of the citizens you serve. You have to take into account the Griggs County Commission is also, and we serve a very small group of people that have been pushed and pushed and pushed and are living on fixed incomes, and the mention of raising taxes is aggravating, and to say the least to them. So whatever we can do to work with you to get this resolved, I believe that the commission is on board. I can't speak for the rest of them. I'm on board with this because the least damage we cause to the citizens, the better. But the notion that raising valuations doesn't raise taxes is not in principle, possibly, but it's not an arguable point. And you people just proved it with approving the 1 mil for Grand Forks. The minute you raise valuations, you raise taxes. And taxes are supposed to stop, according to the North Dakota Constitution, at the county line. The state is not supposed to have any authority as far as property tax goes. Over the years, they have assumed regulatory control, and that's fine. But the notion that raising valuations doesn't raise taxes in practice is not correct. So
Treasurer
I would go ahead. So thank you for your time. I know I've taken too much of it. A lot of this was my personal beliefs. The board speaks for itself, and the board's vote was that we couldn't afford the $30,000, but that we are more than willing to provide you with any information or any suggestions from you as how we resolve this. We are on board with that.
Thank you for your comments, John. We do have some comments here. Treasurer Beadle?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So John, I understand the concerns that you guys are having in Griggs County. I understand the issues of small population counties trying to be able to accurately convey the data, but also to be able to find bodies to do the work to make that happen. I know that's a struggle. There's 12 counties smaller than Griggs County in North Dakota from a population perspective, and there's a couple other that are right in that range. Have you guys considered doing joint powers agreements with any of those other counties to consolidate services to try to help find somebody who can help provide this work?
Yeah, I keep getting muted, and every time they mute me, it cuts you out also. Could you repeat that?
So looking at, there's 12 counties that are smaller than Griggs County, and there's a couple of that are right around their same size as well. So I imagine, recognizing that this is a challenge specifically for smaller counties that have less bodies available to do the work and also smaller budgets, have you in the commission considered entering in any joint powers agreements with other counties to be able to pool resources to find folks that can do the work for multiple counties at once?
Yeah, the answer is yes. In a very preliminary way, we've had our state's attorney reach out to surrounding counties, inquiring to that point. I think the holdup on that is the surrounding counties that are in the same situation that we are in, that are lucky enough to employ a tax director, are very hesitant to put any more work onto that tax director for fear that he or she flees. So we haven't had any takers on a joint agreement. We have a joint agreement with Nelson County concerning our state's attorney. We share a state's attorney. I can't say we, I as a commissioner would be all on board with sharing many duties with other counties. I think eventually with the decrease in size, population, and the aging of these smaller agricultural counties, I think it will become imperative eventually that counties share resources and eventually get to the point where they're not individual anymore other than in the boundaries. I think we're already at that point where you could see we've seen the social services being taken over by the state, and I might say have done a very good job of that. I always am skeptical of a bureaucracy when they take over an entity that's run by a smaller, hands-on organization, but I see great efficiencies that were achieved in the social services part of it. I think that there could be the same efficiencies made throughout these small county governments that would benefit of course, the people that we take the money from to run these governments. And that is the main point of government, is to serve the people, not vice versa. And if we're not serving the people, and part of serving the people is being very conscientious with the dollars that we take from them, and they don't give it to us willingly. We've created a system where if they don't give the money to us, we send men with guns to take the property. And now that doesn't happen very often, but the risk is there. So we need to be more conscientious and more in tune with the people that employ us. We don't employ them. We don't rule them.
Yeah, and John, I appreciate that. I know that that's an issue that everyone's dealing with. That's why as a state, since 2009, we've provided over $9 billion out to political subdivisions to try to help with property tax relief across the state. So I know that's an ever-present issue that we're always dealing with. And so I appreciate that you share that concern and are continuing to try to help with that at the Griggs County perspective. One follow-up question. And I know you mentioned, that you can't raise a valuation without raising taxes, but you also mentioned that you guys you budget based off of the dollars that you need for your budgets, not based off of the mills that you can charge for it. So has there been a time where you've reduced the mills when the valuation goes up?
Well, we never reduce the mill, of course. So if you're doing a dollar-based budgeting, then let's just say that a mill is worth $20 and our budget came to $100. That would be 5 mills. When we're doing the next year and we're still doing $100 that we are budgeting, and a mill is now worth more than that in effect reduces the number of mills. That's correct.
Correct.
So as we kept over those 10 years that we kept the budget dollar value, the overall dollar value, the same, the reverse happened with the number of mills we were levying. As the mills increased, as the value of a mill increased, it took less of them to cover the amount of dollars that we were budgeting.
Commissioner.
Madam Chair, thank you. John, Doug Goring.
Hello, Doug.
Hi, John. A couple questions just so I can get some clarification. And I understand everybody has a different view on how we as elected officials function and operate, at least at state level and the federal level. We have the 3 branches of government and a separation of powers. On the local level, it's a little bit different, but pretty much still the same. But you are in a position where you have to implement, enforce, and execute. So you had made a comment, and I have 2 questions, but my first one's going to be, the city council had taxed, or I should say repaired streets within the town of Cooperstown. And that didn't go to a vote of the people?
That's right.
What-
So if you let me explain that, I will, you're probably more aware of it than anybody, but of course, on any new project, in order to it be taxed, it has to be subject to the whole bond issue vote, a 60% vote. So the streets, I don't know where the legislative change came, but it did come about where putting new streets in could be construed as a repair, which then did not require it to go to a vote of the people, even though the dollar amount was in millions of dollars, because it was classified as a repair, it could be done by a simple vote of the city council, and it was done that way, for no other reason than I would imagine the city council thought the streets needed to be repaired. They didn't repair them; they completely redid them. They're brand new pavement. The street was still there. I suppose it could be a repair, but it's no different than if they would have put new streets in. And that caused a major, and is causing a major upset, of course, amongst the taxpayers, because they weren't consulted on this, and all of a sudden they look at their specials and they've more than doubled. And now after this year, they're going to go up to more than double for 2 years, and then settle down to where it'll be at over 100% of what they were paying in the prior years. So there's a number of issues that have caused Griggs County to be very tax wary, and that's just where we stand. I'm a purist. I believe in the concept of our government. I believe that the concept of it is without a doubt a model for history. I'm very discouraged with its continued implementation towards authoritarianism and disregard for the people.
Yeah,
And
I
so
guess-
I judge my opinions and the way I vote on what I believe the 50%, the majority of the people I represent, would want done. And that's, again, in its pure and simple form, that's how I conduct myself. And I don't believe that government should do anything more than provide the basics that people can't provide for themselves. And if that causes problems in today's system, with me being that way, maybe I'm a dinosaur. But that's so I can only justify my actions by my beliefs. And if my beliefs are wrong, then I probably shouldn't be a county commissioner.
Well, I don't want to belabor this, but I have one more question.
Yep,
So
go ahead.
concerning your budget.
Yes.
Concerning your budget, is there some way to turn that down, or why is it all of a sudden a lot of backfeed?
I hear that. It's not me.
No, I know it's not you. It's on our end. That's fine.
Okay.
What's actually stressed your budget? Is it roads? Is it services? I mean, law enforcement? Is it fire? Snow removal?
Right. Okay.
What's
So
actually-
maybe
Because something has caused.
maybe I'll. Yes. So maybe I'll. Here's the way to explain it. In my view, and I'm put it this way, I'm the last of the 5 commissioners left. So as the other commissioners who are of like mind, very conservative, retired or were no longer commissioners, the viewpoint of some of the newer commissioners, and they represent the citizens they represent, became how do I say,
But
not quite so conservative.
what
not
happened
quite
to
so
your budget?
cost conscious.
Say, John, what
The bu-
happened?
The budget
What
is
happened
going,
to the
is
budget over
going
the
up.
last 11 years? Without getting
stayed
into
the
the
same.
philosophical view.
It stayed the same, and now with the change in the commissioners, there's a push to keep spending more money.
Is that because there's just increased costs that are going on? And not that I want to get into all the business, but
No,
I'm just trying to figure out, because it seems like
Figure.
every every political sub, every county is probably experiencing this, and then there comes back to an accountability issue where citizens are asking the county commissioners,
Why?
yeah, if we're not doing snow removal one year, are you banking those dollars and not just charging us the next year and then putting those in a slush fund or something?
Absolute. Well, there is no such thing as a slush fund, but in the general fund, of course. the
Correct,
dollar
yeah,
not
I'm
spent,
sorry, I
it
shouldn't
just
use that
rolls
word.
over. In the general fund, the money rolls over, of course, and becomes available throughout the general fund for the next year. So I can explain the philosophy. I can explain it real easily. We just started our budget process 2 meetings ago. And in my way of thinking, the first part of a budget process is to look at the money that was spent that last year. In Griggs County's case, we have a very, very small budget. We spent $1.6 million. Then the question to the commissioners is, how much money should we spend above that? What would be tolerable to the citizens? And we based that on a cost of living increase. So we decided that 3.2% over the 1.6 million would work as from a standpoint the citizens would accept that. Now we're in the process of spreading that. Now it's $1.7 million or approximately that throughout the budget and trying to make that fit, because the
So,
process
John,
of a budget is not just raising. Yeah, go ahead.
If I could ask, why not break your
Right.
budget down so where you have salaries, you have operating costs, you have snow removal here, you have road maintenance over here on gravel roads, you have repairs and maintenance on any of the asphalt roads. I guess if you break all those
We do
down,
that.
you wouldn't have to take an overall 3.2% increase, but that's why I wanted to ask that
No.
question so that we don't get into this habit of let's just increase, 3.2%. And I get it, in this day and age with the hyperinflation we've suffered, political subs are just hit with supply chain issues and labor costs,
Yep.
contract costs. So I get all that. And you pretty much answered my question. I didn't want to get into the philosophical part of it because I agree with you, but yeah, thank you.
We do break it down though, Mr. Goin. We break it down. We just start with that's the maximum that we want to spend, and then we go look at each department on what their budget was put forward, and we prioritize. We prioritize infrastructure, which would be the road department. We prioritize law enforcement, and we prioritize our taking care of the people that can't take care of themselves. Those then receive priority treatment, and then from there on, we work our way down the budget, and we try to make sure that if we can, we don't spend any more money than we did last year, and if we could, if there's places to make cuts, we'd spend less money than last year. The 3.2 was all that we could agree on for a maximum. That's not a minimum. That's a maximum.
Sure.
That we are going to let it increase. So again, we went for 10 years, the dollar value that we spent, that we levied in Griggs County never went up.
No, and I appreciate that, and thank you. You answered my question, and I appreciate the way you guys are working on your budget and doing some things. Thank you.
Well, I have to apologize if what we're doing is causing aggravation for you people. I fully understand that, but you have to understand where I'm coming from. I serve the small amount of people that are in my district.
Thank you, Madam Chair. John, one other question. So you just were mentioning your
Yeah.
roughly $1.5 million fund or annual budget. Looking at the county levy in 2023, it was just under 1.5 million. Of that, about 650,000 went towards the county roads fund. Also, 2023, that was when Griggs County did receive about $920,000 in prairie dog funds for infrastructure money.
Yes. Yes.
So about 20% or so higher than the property tax levy on there. Last report we had
Yep.
on that one was that it was reserved for future use. Have you guys identified a project for that yet? Or is that still sitting in a reserve fund?
So we, you're right, we're in the process of, excuse me, we're in the process of that. What we did with that money was we put it into a C fund, a special fund, and we had a bridge project that was gonna have to be done.
Sure.
And, the federal government came out with a program where they'd pay 100% of the bridge. So that money then, was not used for that. We have a couple paving projects that need to be done. And of course, nowadays you can't get any amount of paving done for $1 million doesn't go very far at all. So of that 900,000 in prairie dog funds, none of that has been allocated yet. And it is sitting in the special fund so that when we receive federal funds, we can use the prairie dog funds as our portion of it.
Sure.
So that we can stretch out those prairie dog funds. The effectiveness of those prairie dog funds will be amplified by the federal funds and make it go a lot farther.
All right, thank you.
Excuse me?
I think Commissioner Cautious would like to make a few comments. Go
Yes.
ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, John. Appreciate your time and comments. One thing you had alluded to, and just for the board members, in terms of reaching out and essentially having the state, or I believe you're referring to the property tax division team to do the sales ratio study for Griggs. We have a long list of functions and responsibilities that are outlined in statute. We don't have the bandwidth to handle that type of work on behalf of the 53 counties or even a quarter of the smaller counties. And I get the challenge. My farming operation is in Golden Valley County. And I completely understand what it's like to try and recruit, people to come and work in Beach, North Dakota. It's
Yes. Yep.
difficult. I get it. But just, I hope you can appreciate that it's not as simple and on our end because of, we believe in limited government at the tax department as well. And I think we showed that with over 20,000 phone calls, 140,000 applications on the primary residence credit, which was just enacted. No additional
Yep.
FTEs to conduct that. So we're trying to squeeze everything in we can. And in terms of a sales ratio study completed by a tax director at the county level, that's a responsibility that falls in each respective county's arena. We're more than happy to help as we can, but we're always in a catch-up mode, to be honest. And the workload doesn't go down over time; it goes up. All the centrally assessed numbers, again, a part of the team
Yes.
that. You're seeing the entire team to my, I don't know, are we live on video now? But the team going
No,
down.
I'm not. I'm out.
Oh, okay. But so kind of like when people are talking about, a football game from left to right on your radio dial. Well, they're to
Yes.
my left, but I can appreciate that.
Okay.
But I'd encourage you to continue trying to work with other counties to Treasurer Beetle's point in terms of, some type of a cooperative agreement, if you can make that work. And of course, we'll continue to do what we can on our end.
Right. I think as far as the valuations, I don't think there's anything out of hand as far as that goes. I think everything is, because we're such a small county and because it's all hands-on with the townships and the city, does a very good job of, they have an assessor, by the way, and they made a number of changes this year in the equalization. They raised some, they lowered some. They do a very good job, and that's the majority of the sales in Griggs County. I don't think there's any inequities that are in place. I do believe that there's a false sense of increase in value because of the nature of Griggs County and the fixed income and the people living in retirement and the inflation. People have neglected by need making improvements. So as we go forward and there's less and less money to go around, there's less and less money to make improvements on their properties just because they need the money for everyday life. So eventually, that coupled with higher interest rates now, eventually we're going to see a decline in property values, housing values in Cooperstown, just as we've seen in the other two smaller cities, Binford and Hannaford, at one time enjoyed values close to Cooperstown. As those communities declined in population and the population aged, the value of the homes drastically decreased and continues to decrease. So this is nothing new. Since Griggs County has been decreasing in population since 1920, at its high of 7,500 people to its current population of 2,200 people, it has decreased on an average of 50 residents per year on a steady downward trend. And that is just a function of agriculture. And it now takes less people to take care of the land. It takes less people to take care of the farmers that are taking care of the land. If there's no jobs, there's no people. So we're going to be dealing with this for a long time until we don't have to deal with it anymore because there's nothing left here. And that's the nature of society.
Go ahead,
Madam
Commissioner.
Chair? Yeah, I have a question for Commissioner Crotius. Would you even have the authority to do any of the work that would be suggested? And it's only because I deal with this from time to time. I may want to do something to help constituents out, but if I lack the authority in statute, I get myself in a lot of trouble with the auditor.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, I'm going to defer to Commissioner Goring. I'm going to defer to Charles Dendy. I'm just going, I think I know the answer to this, but Charles, can you confirm? And I'll just nod as if that's exactly what I was thinking, if whatever you say.
Certainly, Lieutenant Governor, members of the board, the Office of State Tax Commissioner or the State Board under statute aren't the ones charged with collecting this data and providing it. It says in the statutes that it's supposed to be collected at the city and county level, provided to the state.
Any other discussion as it relates to Griggs County?
The
Thank you,
only
John.
thing I would add is, right, I was just going to again thank John and his comments related to Griggs County. I think it was certainly helpful. We want a productive working relationship. We want a cooperative working relationship, one based on understanding and respect. It's because I agree with the comment of we're all public servants. We do this on behalf of the citizens, whether it's of Griggs County or the state of North Dakota, depending on our roles, and we take it very seriously as well. So I certainly appreciate that, and thank you for the comments.
Thank you, John.
Thank you all, and thank you all. And again, if it appeared like I was passing the blame, that's probably human nature. It wasn't the intent. It was just I was at a point where I was frustrated on what to do, and it seemed logical that if I didn't know what to do, maybe someone up at a higher position would know what to do.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Is there any other business? Do we have a next meeting?
We do. We have the second Tuesday, is it, in August will be that
Okay.
is statutory. That's
And what is that date? All right.
that will be a longer meeting.
I think I remember. All right. I think I had a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Meeting adjourned. Thank you. And thank you, Commissioner and your team for preparing everything for this meeting.
Yep, great team. Thank you.